You are exhausted, weary of the incessant hunt, drained from watching video after video, hoping that just one more piece of footage will finally yield the elusive truth. The missing key, the secret formula that promises to make everything in your life fall into place. Yet, here is the harsh reality. The answer you seek is not hidden in the next video. It is not bound within the pages of the next book. It is not out there at all. Carl Jung made a profoundly unsettling observation about those who endlessly consume psychological content. They are not genuinely engaged in learning, they are expertly hiding. Jung identified a distinct psychological state where the act of seeking becomes a sophisticated defense mechanism against the necessity of becoming. The marathon of video watching grants a feeling of momentum, yet it is arguably the most advanced form of procrastination ever conceived. You believe you are preparing for life, but in reality, you are avoiding life itself. And the worst part? A quiet, undeniable certainty deep inside confirms this. You already know you have been orbiting the same patterns, collecting profound insights like academic trophies, stockpiling wisdom you have no intention of deploying, and constructing a vast library of transformation techniques, while your actual, lived experience remains stubbornly, frustratingly inert. Jung labeled this phenomenon the Puer Aeternus, the eternal child. The individual locked in perpetual preparation, constantly getting ready, always learning, convinced that one additional insight separates them from finally initiating their real life. Does that sound familiar? You absorb videos on shadow work, you become conversant in archetypes, you nod sagely at integration theory. You feel that sharp electric sensation of recognition. Yes, this is it. This explains everything. And then what happens? You simply click the next video. Jung witnessed this cyclical pattern quietly dismantling lives. Not through dramatic breakdowns, but slowly, subtly, one year after another of intellectual understanding, devoid of a single moment of genuine transformation. These were individuals who could quote Jung with flawless precision, but had never truly confronted their own shadow. People who mastered every psychological concept, yet remained the exact same person they were half a decade ago. He chronicled instances of patients who spent decades inhabiting what he called the waiting room of life. They waited to feel adequately prepared, waited to understand enough, waited for the flawless moment when all the theoretical pieces would simply lock into place, allowing transformation to occur automatically, effortlessly, without requiring them to engage in anything remotely uncomfortable. That moment never arrived, because it does not exist. The provisional life feels productive. It mimics growth. You are consuming high-quality content. You are mastering terminology. You are experiencing flashes of insight. Your YouTube history is a testament to deep psychological exploration. Your notes application overflows with profound personal realizations. You can hold sophisticated conversations about individuation, shadow integration, and archetypal possession. But Jung arrived at a devastating conclusion. Insights devoid of integration are merely entertainment. Knowledge without corresponding transformation is nothing more than ego decoration. You are not becoming wiser. You are becoming a storage unit for irrelevant data, a mausoleum of borrowed wisdom, a library that nobody, including yourself, ever actually opens. Ponder this for a moment. How many psychology videos did you consume this month? How many complex concepts did you learn? Now, ask yourself the truly difficult questions. What concrete things have actually changed in your life? What single behavior have you modified? What underlying fear have you faced? What uncomfortable boundary-setting conversation have you initiated? What destructive pattern have you successfully broken? The silence that follows these questions is the true sound of the provisional life. The endless preparation that stalls before action, the perpetual rehearsal that never transitions into performance. And what makes this trap so insidious? The provisional life dispenses just enough satisfaction to keep you shackled. Every video provides a microdose of dopamine with each insight. Every new concept creates the feeling that you are making significant progress. Every intellectual realization convinces you that you are on the path to growth. But you are not growing. You are spectating. You are passively watching others describe growth while you remain rigidly still. Jung drew a brutal, essential distinction: intellectual understanding versus emotional integration. Most people incorrectly assume they are interchangeable. They are not even remotely close. They exist in different universes of experience. You may know about your shadow. You can define it, explain it to peers, recognize it in case studies, write eloquent essays on the topic, and ace any test on Jungian psychology. But if you have never truly felt the burning, corrosive shame of encountering your own denied darkness in a real-world scenario, you do not know your shadow. You merely know the concept of shadows. This is the central trap. The ego adores collecting wisdom. It thrives on feeling psychologically sophisticated. It builds an entire identity around being the wise one, the conscious one, the person who truly comprehends Jung and sees patterns others miss. The ego gorges itself on borrowed insights. It constructs an identity based on the identity of consciousness, wisdom, and awareness. But that is not transformation. That is the small self masquerading as the big self, playing dress-up in borrowed theoretical garments. It is the mask of consciousness worn squarely over the face of ingrained unconsciousness. Jung called this mechanism the vampire of wisdom. This is the psychological function where the ego consumes complex insights solely to feel superior, thus avoiding the painful, difficult work of actual, tangible change. You watch a video on ego death and feel spiritually enlightened, yet your ego has only grown larger. You study humility and become subtly more arrogant. You analyze compassion and become more judgmental toward those who do not grasp compassion as deeply as you do. The irony is suffocating. Every video you watch with the stated goal of becoming more conscious can in fact make you more unconscious. Why? Because you now possess a sophisticated, elevated vocabulary to justify your deeply ingrained patterns. You can now analyze and intellectualize your avoidance. You can articulate your fear. You possess a full lexicon to eloquently describe why you are not changing, instead of simply changing. Jung observed patients doing this for years. They would enter therapy and display brilliant psychological insight. They could analyze their own behavioral patterns with surgical precision. They could trace their current issues directly back to their childhood complexes, explain their defenses, and map their entire psychological landscape with impressive accuracy. And they would then leave the session and do absolutely nothing differently. Because understanding is not transformation. Talking about swimming is not the same as the visceral experience of getting wet. Describing fire is distinct from feeling its heat. Knowing about love is not the same as the act of loving. Here is the essential question that exposes the illusion. If you were to lose your memory tomorrow and forget every single concept you learned from psychology videos, would your actual behavior be different? Would you treat people differently? Would you make alternative choices? Would you face your fears? Would your relationships improve? Would you be fundamentally braver? If the honest answer is no, then you do not possess wisdom. You possess trivia. You do not have transformation, you have information. And information without application is merely distracting noise. The massive chasm between knowing and doing is where the majority of people spend their entire lives. They know they should set boundaries, but they refuse. They know they must confront their fears, yet they hesitate. They know they need to initiate difficult conversations, but they hold back. They know they must cease people-pleasing, but they continue. They know they should express their authentic self, but they keep hiding. Why? Because knowing is intellectually comfortable, doing is terrifying. This is where the psychological shadow deepens. Jung discovered that individuals become addicted to their own potential. They fall profoundly in love with the idealized fantasy of who they could become. And that fantasy grows infinitely more seductive than the difficult reality of who they currently are. Every new psychology video you consume nourishes that fantasy. Look at the empowered person you could be if you integrated your shadow. Look at the conscious, individuated being waiting inside you. Just one more insight, just one more concept, just one more video, just one more book. Meanwhile, the present moment version of you remains stagnant, unexamined and unlived, precisely because facing the reality of the present is painful. The fantasy is comfortable. The fantasy grants you the feeling of superiority without the discomfort or risk of achieving actual superiority. The fantasy furnishes you with the identity of someone undertaking a profound, courageous journey without ever requiring you to take a single, genuine step. Jung saw this addiction destroy potential that was meant to be realized. People who possess the raw capacity to transform chose instead to endlessly consume transformation content. People who could have actually become conscious opted to watch videos about consciousness. People who could have lived chose to prepare for living. He referred to them as the promising ones, individuals with tremendous, vibrant potential who never actualized any of it. They were perpetually about to do something great, perpetually on the verge of a breakthrough, always one realization away from finally becoming who they were destined to be, except they never were. Because potential is inherently safe. Potential cannot fail. Potential cannot be judged. Potential cannot be rejected. As long as you remain within the protective realm of pure potential, you are shielded from the harsh, undeniable scrutiny of actual performance. This addiction is subtle. It does not feel like addiction. It feels like profound growth. It feels like you are doing something vital. You're investing in yourself. You are diligently working on your psychology. You are on a journey of self-discovery. Look at your watch history, all those deep, meaningful videos you've consumed. Surely that has to account for something, right? But does it? Does consuming content about transformation actually initiate transformation within you? Does watching videos about consciousness fundamentally make you more conscious? Does learning about Jung actually lead to greater individuation? Or are you simply avoiding the terrifying, brutal simplicity of what transformation genuinely demands? It does not require more information, more insights, or more complex concepts. It requires only the raw courage to stop watching and start doing, to stop learning and start living, to stop preparing and finally start being. Jung knew the truth. You already possess sufficient knowledge right now at this exact moment to begin. You know your recurring patterns. You know your core fears. You know precisely what you are avoiding. You know the hard conversations you need to initiate. You know the boundaries you must establish. You know the risks you are obligated to take. More videos will not make the process any easier. More theoretical concepts will not somehow make you braver. More intellectual understanding will not make the leap across the void any less terrifying. There is no amount of external preparation that will ever make you feel ready, because readiness is not a state of feeling that you passively arrive at. It is a decisive action you choose to take, despite the feeling of fear. Here is the key mechanism that maintains your entrapment. Jung termed it the projection of the wise old man archetype. You take your own profound inner wisdom and project it onto external authorities, YouTubers, esteemed authors, spiritual teachers, therapists, and gurus. You willingly surrender your inherent authority to people who appear to possess the answers you lack. This feels appropriately humble. It feels like learning. It feels like correctly respecting expertise. But it is, in fact, an immensely sophisticated strategy for avoiding your own inner knowing. Because if you were to fully acknowledge that the wisdom is already resident inside you, then you would have absolutely no excuse left not to utilize it. As long as the wisdom resides out there, in the next video, the next book, the next authority, you can perpetually maintain the search instead of committing to the act of becoming.
Jung warned against this tirelessly. The guru is always a projection. The teacher is merely a mirror. What you admire so intensely in them already exists within your own being. What you mistakenly believe they can give you, you already possess. But admitting this truth is terrifying, because then you become responsible. Then you can no longer blame your persistent lack of transformation on not having located the correct piece of information yet. Every time you click on a new psychology video, ask yourself honestly, are you searching for genuinely new information, or are you looking for explicit permission to delay transformation for one more day? Are you truly seeking wisdom, or are you seeking comfort in the familiar, repetitive pattern of seeking? The answer is profoundly uncomfortable because you have known it all along. Think carefully about the videos you watch habitually, the topics you constantly revisit: shadow work, individuation, consciousness, integration. How many times do you need to learn about these exact same concepts before you actually commit to applying them? How many different people need to articulate the same essential ideas before you translate them into action? The truth is, you are not watching for fresh data. You are watching for the feeling. The feeling of being on an important path, the feeling of subtle growth, the feeling of impending becoming. But feelings are not transformation. Feelings are transient states, and the feeling of transformation is not synonymous with actual transformation. Jung observed a fascinating difference between his patients who achieved true transformation and those who remained permanently stuck. The ones who transformed were not those who understood his complex theories best. They were not the patients who could quote him most accurately. They were not the ones who possessed the most psychological knowledge. They were the ones who took the minimal amount they understood and immediately applied it. They were the ones who felt intense fear and proceeded with the action anyway. They were the ones who made imperfect, clumsy, and uncomfortable attempts at change. They were the ones who failed, extracted the lesson, and attempted again. They were the ones who lived their way into new understanding, rather than believing they could think their way into a new life. This is the climax, the moment of terrifying, unavoidable realization. No new piece of information is coming to rescue you. No perfect, ultimate video exists that will magically clarify everything. No ultimate insight will negate the fundamental necessity of actually living your life. You already know your shadow is present. You already know you meticulously avoid confrontation. You already know you play restrictive roles. You already know you are hiding. You already know you are not living at the true edge of your capacity. More videos will not change the fact that at some mandatory point, you must cease consuming and start confronting. Jung termed this the leap, the decisive moment when passive understanding must forcefully become active experience, when static knowledge must transform into embodied experience, when mere watching must become immediate doing. And it is terrifying because the water below is dark. You cannot possibly see the bottom. You cannot know the outcome. You cannot preemptively prepare for every single possibility. You simply have to jump. This is the fundamental reason you keep watching videos, not because you need more information, but because the leap is horrifying and the videos provide the comfortable illusion of continuous progress without the inherent risk of actual change. You can feel productive. You can maintain the cherished identity of someone who is working on themselves. You can sustain the identity of someone on a profound spiritual journey, all while remaining completely safe and dry on the shore. But Jung also discovered something beautiful in this process. The people who genuinely transform are not the masters of theory. They are the individuals who leap despite grasping very little. They are the ones who deliberately seek discomfort, who face the paralyzing fear, who initiate the difficult conversations, who do the exact thing they have been avoiding, who live their lives fully before they ever feel ready. Transformation does not originate from perfect, comprehensive understanding. It emerges from imperfect action. It comes from stumbling blindly forward in the dark. It comes from trying things and inevitably failing. It comes from being messy, uncertain and afraid, yet moving anyway. Jung himself experienced this during his deep confrontation with the unconscious, his famous breakdown period. He did not possess a perfect map or intellectual understanding of the terrifying processes happening within him. He was terrified, confused, and profoundly lost. But he persistently engaged with the material. He maintained his practice of active imagination. He meticulously recorded his visions. He kept showing up to the work even when he could not comprehend it. That persistent engagement, not his brilliant theories, not his intellectual mastery, is what ultimately saved him. It was his willingness to engage with the unknown, his courage to proceed when the path was utterly obscured, his commitment to the messy process even when the outcome remained desperately uncertain. So, what is Jung's solution? It is brutally, beautifully simple. Stop. Just stop. Stop consuming content. Stop seeking new information. Stop watching videos about psychology. Stop reading books about transformation. Just stop. And in that mandatory cessation, in that silence, in that enforced absence of new external input, something essential happens. The unconscious mind finally gains the necessary space to speak. Because right now, your unconscious is completely drowned out by the constant, overwhelming noise of external content consumption. You fill every moment of quiet introspection with the voice of someone else. We are constantly absorbing someone else's insights, someone else's wisdom. The cycle is relentless. You wake up and immediately check your phone. You watch videos while you eat breakfast. You absorb podcasts on your commute. You scroll mindlessly during lunch. You watch more videos in the evening. You fall asleep to someone talking about consciousness. In this constant barrage of external voices, when exactly is your own unconscious mind given the chance to speak? When do you ever tune in to hear your own inner counsel? Never. You have systematically replaced the vital necessity of inner work with the passive act of consuming content. Genuine self-reflection has been supplanted by the reflections of strangers, and your unique, unwritten journey has been traded for the vicarious experience of watching others narrate theirs. Carl Jung termed the process of connecting with the deep self as active imagination. But this demands a profound commitment to silence. Not just quiet, but real silence. It requires welcoming boredom, that uncomfortable, stripped-down space where you are finally alone with yourself. There is no video to watch, no readily available content to consume, and no convenient distraction from the difficult truths happening within you. This, and only this, is the fertile ground for real transformation. True change doesn't lie in the next viral video or the latest profound insight. It resides in the silence after you have successfully turned them all off. It lives in the space where you finally confront what you already intuitively know, allowing that buried wisdom to finally initiate change. Jung's prescription is terrifying precisely because of its simplicity. Stop seeking and start being. Stop learning and start living. Stop preparing and start doing. You must act not because you feel entirely ready, not because you comprehend every facet of the situation, and certainly not because you have watched enough videos. You must act because life is unfolding right now, and no amount of elaborate preparation will ever make you more prepared than you already are. The necessary shift is fundamental. From intellectual thinking to intuitive sensing, from passive consuming to active experiencing, and from simply watching to fully doing. This transformation demands that you face the very things you have been avoiding. It requires you to embrace boredom, tolerate uncertainty, sit with discomfort, and move forward even when you do not possess all the answers. Anyway, here is the concrete, practical reality of what that actually looks like. You consciously discontinue watching psychology videos. You dedicate 20 minutes daily to sitting in absolute silence. You journal without imposed structure or predetermined goals. You start paying close attention to the language of your dreams. You observe your behavioral patterns in real time, catching yourself in the act of avoidance and then immediately ceasing the evasion. You feel the surge of fear and still act anyway. You initiate the difficult conversation. You establish the necessary boundary. You choose to take the risk. This work is neither sexy nor exciting. It offers no immediate dopamine hit from a novel insight, but it is unequivocally real. And real transformation is a quiet, unglamorous, often uncomfortable labor that nobody else can validate, see, or applaud. Jung understood this fundamentally. He spent years engaged in his own internal darkness, performing his own work with no external audience and no validation. He didn't post about his progress or create videos detailing his methods. He did not seek external confirmation. He simply did the work because the necessity of the work demanded it. That is the true essence of individuation, not merely understanding the concept, but living it. This moment might genuinely be the last video you ever need to watch. Not because it contains some ultimate truth, but because you are finally ready to stop watching and start living. You already possess sufficient knowledge. You have always known enough. The sole barrier separating you from true transformation is the persistent illusion that you require just one more piece of information. Jung dedicated his life to studying the human psyche, and his ultimate insight was beautifully simple. Consciousness is not a topic you learn about. It is a state you actively live, and you cannot live it fully while perpetually occupied watching videos detailing how to live it. So, consider this your long-awaited permission. The permission you have been waiting for. Stop searching now. You have already located everything you require. It has resided inside you the whole time. Now, you simply must be brave enough to utilize it. Close this video. Turn off your phone. Sit in silence. Allow yourself to feel the genuine discomfort of not consuming content. Notice the instinctive urge to reach for the next clip and resolutely resist it. Sit with yourself. Listen intently to the message your unconscious is attempting to convey, and then act on it. Not tomorrow, not when you feel perfectly ready, and certainly not after one more video. Act now. If you are ready to stop watching and start embodying this life, write "I am ready" in the comments below. And if this video helped you recognize that you have been using content consumption as an avoidance mechanism, please hit the like button. You may subscribe if you desire more insights that challenge you toward actual transformation instead of just learning about transformation. But in all honesty, you do not need to subscribe. You do not need more videos.